morning, everyone. Very excited to bring to you the first of what we hope to be many actual client video testimonials. And it's certainly a privilege to be in my position. For those of you that haven't connected with before, my name is Richard Schaefer, field partner with United Financial and co-founder of Accelerate Equity Group. And we work not only in the financial space in general, but obviously market what is probably the most extraordinary financial cash management, debt elimination, and interest cancellation program in the market, which is the Money Max account. And, I have the unique privilege to be able to work with a lot of our influencers, a lot of our online content creators, and financial professionals as terms of affiliate referral partners, but also get the opportunity and the privilege to meet with a lot of our clients that are utilizing our program and gaining great benefits from it. So, with that, I want to introduce a very special gentleman that I've become fast friends with in just the last couple of weeks, that was introduced to us by my business partner, Rick Fallbush, who got to know Thomas very well just in terms of helping him to get set up and onboarded with our program. And so I want to take a moment to introduce to everyone Mr. Thomas Mejia. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's certainly a privilege to have you on. I genuinely enjoyed our conversation last week before the long holiday weekend, and just couldn't think of anybody better to kind of share some insight in terms of what we do as a company, and of course, what is sort of special about the Money Max program. But I thought it'd be nice if you want to take just a minute or two and tell a little bit about yourself, where you live, your family, and of course what you do, and give everyone a little bit of context for who you are, what you're all about.
Absolutely. I currently live in Orlando, Florida, with my wife. Our daughter and our three grandkids live with us. So we
All right, for
homeschool.
everybody watching that does not believe there's any possibility you could have grandkids because you look way too young for that, you're not the only one thinking that. I thought that too. I was like, come on, you're lying to me.
No, we started young, and in young and wide-eyed wondering,
Sure.
and as life continued, you start realizing some things are not what they seem to be, right? Especially the financial realm.
Yeah.
So I've worked at the hospital now going on 34 years. I've
Wow.
worked in a variety of departments there, but ultimately a lot of experiences there too, from taking people to the morgue to
Oof.
buying things for the hospital, of a variety of different departments. So you get to learn a lot about the system.
Let me ask you about that real quick. I know
Sure.
it's a little bit of a segue, but I think it parallels to much of what we're going to talk about. And not to get too deep into it because it's a very difficult subject for a lot of people, but I imagine over time you get used to it. But what does that experience invoke in you when you're physically having to take people to the morgue? I imagine there's a million thoughts, but what sorts of things, I guess, introspectively go through your mind when you're involved in something like that?
Well, I dealt from little babies to 99-year-olds, taking them to the morgue. The baby is a different perspective, more of a spiritual one, like, okay, cool. They don't have to deal with this crazy world. They go back to the Father, right? That's me. I have a
Mm-hmm.
strong belief in God through Christ. When someone's older, the perspective is they've lived their life, they're in this bag now, and all that's left of them is a shirt and maybe whatever belongings are left. And
Mm.
that's it. And sometimes I do wonder, what was this person's life like?
Yeah.
Right? You wonder. Regardless of how they got to this point, they're at this point of no return, right? Um, So the perspective it reminds me of the book of Ecclesiastes when they say it's good to visit a parlor sometimes and to go,
Yeah.
to find what really matters. And to me, because I do believe a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. It's not just a spiritual one, it's also a financial one.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the part of the journey is thinking, but along the way, you start realizing that as you're trying to do these financial things, you start realizing, hey, if I stay in this lane that I'm at as an employee, I'm I'm going uphill battle. Why? Because of the way our system is designed. It's not
Yeah,
designed for employees.
right.
So I'm like, okay. Then I started learning a little bit about business. The hospital itself is a corporation, huh? Not for profit. How does that work? You know, of course they make a profit, but it's like, but when I was a buyer for the hospital, it put perspective, right? In the finances of how they do things. So you start asking questions. Guess what? No one really at the hospital knows. Sometimes you got to
Hmm.
go outside and get some experts. So I've been blessed, like we'll say since 2010, to have met people who've been like, okay, Tom, it's because there's more going on than meets the eye.
And
I'm
you mean
like,
financial mentors primarily, Thomas,
yes,
correct?
financial mentors, correct. People who are like, okay, there's stuff going on that you don't know about.
Hmm.
And so as you go down this rabbit hole, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And you start realizing, and not to throw anything under the bus, but it's like there's a system out there that we're not privy to.
Do you remember the
So
first conversation we had where we talked a little about that, where I said, it's not about bashing the banks or
yeah,
or the financial institutions, but imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So our whole focus is how do we help people bank like a bank, right? And one of the things I say a lot
correct.
is that there's a reason, respectfully, that banks and financial institutions are the biggest buildings in any
Yep.
city, in any state, in any country in the world. And it's
And
two primary
anywhere,
reasons
anywhere. We've
anywhere on the
traveled,
planet Earth, right?
yes, anywhere,
It's
anywhere.
two primary reasons. One, it's a golden rule, but it's not the one we learned in church. It's he who has the gold makes the rules, right? Possession is 9/10. They have the money and they know what to do with it. So I think that's actually a very, very powerful statement you just made.
Yes. So as you said, we've traveled and we've seen uh I guess my thing is knowing that there I need to learn to play the rules of the games. I
What
get
was
it.
the light bulb moment, would you say, when you were going through the presentation? What was it that first stood out to you most that said, wow, this is different and something I could really see making a significant impact on my family? What was that? Do you remember?
The moment when he was like, he says, Tom, all I need you to do is just but kind of be real with your numbers, which I already had. He goes, we're gonna put your debts in here, and we're gonna do your income here, And he goes, it's gonna take a few visits, meetings. And I said, okay. And I was grateful he had the time. So it was like every like week or for that while we met when we could. We just he worked around my schedule, which I was very grateful. Um, so as we did that, and then so one day when he did the consolidation wizard, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
on the when you do the Money Max account, there's a thing you click, it's called consolidation wizard. And it showed me, first of all, when he showed me the savings, right? Before we did the consolidation, it was like, I'm like, you mean I could actually get out of this faster? That's without the government contract money coming in, right? This is
Do you
just,
remember roughly what that number looked like when you first ran your initial analysis?
I want to say it was about 100 and um I want to say it was like about 195,000.
Okay. And what
Yeah.
about the years to pay off? What did that look like roughly?
When it said 4 to 5, I said 4.5 this year, and it had a date. I was like, whoa. And I'm like, and that's not doing anything different. And that's not doing anything different. Okay. And then I think
Well,
we
you mean it's
ran.
it's not changing anything in your circumstance, but it's allowing the
Yeah,
system to start more intelligently
that's
dictating
correct.
and allocating what to do with the money and when. Yeah.
That's correct. That's correct. And so just like a financial GPS, and believe it or not, we weren't using that terminology. It was just like, follow the roadmap, kind of like, but it made
Hey, just
sense.
so you
It's
know,
like,
for the
yeah,
record, I've been using that terminology for about 17 years. But
okay.
yes.
I know I wasn't using it. I was like, but this makes so much sense. When we went through the process, and it took a couple of weeks, and he was just and the whole time he was just totally optimistic, like, just wait, bro,
Hmm.
just wait, just wait, just wait. And when he ran the numbers and he showed me that there's a ending at the end of the rainbow, I'm like, what?
Now, I want to
He
stop
goes,
on that point for a second. It's interesting because I did a podcast with a financial company, a mortgage company recently, and they said, what do you think is the single biggest impact that the program makes and why? Right. And I think they expected me to talk about, the 20 some $1 million that's been invested in research and development or the algorithms or the math, if you will. And that's obviously foundationally a very, very big part of it. Right. But the single greatest impact that I see after thousands of clients is the dashboard, right? Just like when you have GPS, there's the ETA, your estimated time of arrival, how many more miles left, and how many more minutes, right? That is the part. We don't really watch anything else as much. We're listening for the prompts, but that's what tells us, am I going to make it on time for my appointment? Am I running behind? Or, how much longer do I have to
Yeah.
go?
Yeah.
Financially, that dashboard that you're referencing, Thomas, here's the day, month, and year that you and your family could be totally and completely out of debt. Here's how much interest you have remaining, and here's how much you've already saved. And every single thing you do in real time does what? Instantaneously recalculates that. And that creates a little bit of a behavioral shift. Is that the way that it occurred to you too?
Yeah, it does. Because this is like, you know, first of all, I began to realize I knew there was something up, and I was like, this can't be that. Forget, I'm sorry. The financial game that's played that most people don't realize that when the banks feel like, or whoever runs
Yeah.
the money.
The powers that be, let's say that.
Yeah, so I'm not talking about the poor teller, poor guy, I'm talking about the
Mm-hmm.
people who make the decisions, and I won't, but it's like it was sick.
When you first saw those numbers that it could be 4 or 5, 6 years, right? How did that make you begin to shift kind of your occurring relative to what you now saw as how old are you now, Thomas?
I'm 55.
Okay. Again, you definitely don't look 55. How did that change your occurring of, what? Instead of it being 15, 20, 30 years, it could be 4, 5, 6, 8 years and being in your mid 50s. How did that change your outlook on what you now began to see would be possible for you and your family when you saw those results?
Well, when our mentors are really good at making sure you have a vision board, right? And now when
Mm-hmm.
I saw that, I'm like, wow, this is actually doable. And what I felt like is that the money max was a godsend, almost like God said, enough. See, the Bible talks about usury, which is fine, but not to the exorbitant of 20% and above. That's
Right.
ridiculous. Okay.
Right.
It gets to the point where it's just legalized theft. And I'm saying that. Okay. So
Well, prior to COVID, most quote unquote usury limits, and there's various thresholds in different states, but predominantly was 23 or 24.99%, right? That was really the number there. Actually, it was 23.99 in most states. Now it's 29.99. And then they get allowance to make it higher
yes, I
if you have a
saw that.
default rate because you were 30 seconds late in a payment, not 30 days. You could be one day late and all of a sudden that's a default rate. Now you can pay 31, 32, 35% because now it's considered a fee and a penalty, not really an interest rate. And that's how they get around it. But it's amazing that the days of 16, 18% credit card rates are now 20, 25, 30 plus. And now most of those companies, and Rick did a video on this recently, most of those companies, in order to minimize the payment shock and make it more affordable for people, they're now reducing the amount, in many cases, of the percentage of principal that's actually being asked for or applied each payment. So instead of it being 1%, or in many cases, 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes you see it now where it's 3/4 of 1%, half, or even 1/4 of 1%. So imagine if somebody's paying 2.5% a month on interest, and as little as only 1/4 of 1% is actually being paid to principal. They could have one little Amazon Prime subscription add to that and completely wipe it out. So now these times of 15, 20, 30-year payoffs on credit cards paying the minimums, if they don't keep using them, is now looking more like 30, 35, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
So people are going to be indentured servitudes to pay this debt for literally the rest of their lives. And it is can be an incredibly hopeless feeling. And you and I talked about this from a spiritual standpoint. We're never going to say that money is the most important thing. Obviously, we know the problems with the love of money, but right up there
Right.
with oxygen, it's unfortunately a pretty important thing to be able to actually function in this world, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. The drain and the stress and the strain that it creates on a lot of individuals and families is epic.
So it's like when you find a cure for a disease, right?
Like the cure for
And
cancer, wouldn't that be
right,
nice?
right, right, right. And you like, wow, this actually works. Suddenly the fear of what people think doesn't matter. You share something because you know it's gonna set them free.
Yeah.
Um, Believe it or not, I, there's weekly conversations from medical professionals who are just so trapped. And because of that, a lot of these people are my friends. Obviously, I've been there a long time, so I've known them for a while. And to see the constant on hamster wheel, now when they hear about the money max, they're like, it almost sounds too good to be true, right?
Yeah,
If
heard that
it's
a
too
lot.
good, but when you see the numbers play out, right? Including that's why now we're feel free to as we get that more, now I got my IUL through the company as well, which I'm
Hmm.
blessed. And then to have the add the property, knowing that I can manage it all on one system. That's what I love. That's what
Yeah, that's
gave
pretty
me
amazing.
vision. When Rick said he has a client, he has 85 doors. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
amen. So I know I know this can help my growth, right?
Hmm.
So, but I would share, and I do share from heart when I see. I love to share truth. Just like there's a truth of scripture that people need to delve into. That's absolutely truth. When it comes to money, it's the same thing. When people begin to understand that I wouldn't say hope. There's not just hope. There's a step
Solution.
by step solution
Hmm.
to and to see people respond and it's first of all my response in itself was like wow.
With that, if you have any parting words of inspiration or wisdom you'd like to share on behalf of being a very successful, user and client of our program, certainly allow that space, and then we'll close out the call.
Yeah, the final thing I'll say is definitely changed my life. You guys are an answered prayer. I'm grateful that, and when you get to know the history of this company and actually what the owners went through, it's kind of like
Sure.
what any individual goes through. They went through something really tough as a young age and decided I don't want it to be like that for other people.
Right.
That's the servant heart, right? That's realizing, oh my gosh. So I share that with you because when it comes to our situation, it's nothing new under the sun. I don't
Hmm.
feel like, oh, my life is over. But on the contrary, it's all right. It's an answered prayer. It's a system, but mostly it helps people to have hope and to see the truth of things. And then once you see this, you can't unsee this.
I want to thank everybody for taking the time to obviously view this testimonial, and obviously it's more than just obviously the great feedback from one of our extraordinary clients and users of our amazing system, but it's also something that provides a little bit of a teaching and an insight moment that gives you an opportunity to reflect on your own situation, and just know that every once in a great while, some things really are every bit as good, if not better, than they seem. And I can confidently say that this is one of those things. So thank you again, Thomas. And we look forward to hopefully many years of, ongoing relationship with you, and know that we're always here for you. And obviously anybody that that is in a similar situation, you believe we can help. And want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us today, and hope everyone has an amazing day, and make the most of it, and dream big, and don't let
Amen.
yourself stop wishing and, uh, and creating the possibilities for you and your
That's
family in
right.
the future. Thank you so
That's
much.
right. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you so much.